Obviously, we're in need of a little bit of a haircut. Huh, bud? Yeah. Not you. You look good still. You look great. You're looking a little raggedy. That's Mom's fault. Sorry. We already had a bath, huh, bud? Because I forgot to film that part. That's not what that's for, but that's okay. So I've been asked enough grooming questions about Lucci that I thought it would be fun to just kind of share a video of his hairstyle process, I guess. So that anyone could take what they wanted from our process and change it and do what they want with it. I should also mention that I am not a professional groomer. If you have any tips for my techniques, I would love to hear those. Here you go, ma'am. Whenever you're blow drying, put the nozzle right up against the skin and blow away from the body. Because if you blow down like this, you're just going to mat the hair up and the water kind of scatters to other places. But if you did it this way and blow out and away, then the water's flung off and out and they dry a lot faster. It's easiest to use the slicker brush first so it separates and detangles the hair and makes it easier to comb, and then use the comb to pull out the dead hair. Also, this is what it means whenever people say that boobs are non-shedding breeds. They do still shed, you just have to comb them, otherwise their dead hair mats up into their skin instead of falling out onto your floor like other dogs. Like a lot. Lots and lots of combing. Shishi! Yeah, we brushed so long that it's the next day now, because it was midnight before we were done. What's on your face? Oh, some leaves, that's nice. And that's Miss Bunbow. I always use my hand and kind of grab and cover his ear while I'm cutting up there just to make sure I don't nick anything. I think it's easiest to start on the shortest part of the head, and then you can fade everything else out from there. So right between his ears on the top of his head is the very shortest part, and that's where I start. Personally, I like it really short right here because I like to be able to see his ears and it gets fuzzy fast, so I almost give him a buzz cut on the top in this part. So right in the middle, ear to ear, there's nothing long left. When I'm cutting on his face, I always keep a firm hold on his beard, just in case he swings his head to look at something or if Mida starts barking. I just treat his beard as like a built-in handle for a safety feature. For his bang trim, and there's the beard safety grab again, I like to use the curved scissors just because I feel like it looks a little more natural than like a straight blunt cut. I start his bang trim right at the inside corner of his eye just so it leaves a lot of his fall, but then I take it out past the outer corner of his eye just so I can see his eyes from the sides a little bit better. I use the inner corner of his eyes as the map for his fall, so these lines going down is basically where his fall will be, and then I'll trim off the sides around those so that he has less hair on his face. So I basically give him a mohawk, I guess. The shorter stuff above his eyes is what I'm going to trim down and take a lot off of. And there's Mr. Stefan. Now that his fall is shaped out, I'm going to fade it into the shorter part that I cut on top of his head. So I grab it between two fingers, start at the short part, and fade it down so the longest part is by his nose. His fall isn't always this short, but I got tired of not being able to see his eyes a while ago, and I kind of hacked it down to nothing, so it's growing back out from that. Oh, big boy, you have eyes! You have eyes! I know, big boy! Oh, big boy. Cleaning up more of the long pieces hanging down in front of his eyes. Okay, so this part is one of the big differences between his haircut and the classic Bouvier haircut.
So in his, there are no sharp lines. Like on a lot of Bouvier haircuts, you'll see there's a sharp line right there where their buzz cut goes down into long cheeks, which is totally great and that's beautiful. It's just not really my style, so I like to fade his down. So on his, I'll gather up a small section of the long hair right at the very top, just as kind of a transition area. So I'll do the same thing that I did with his fall earlier. Hold it between two fingers and hold it at an angle so you can see the short to the long lengths, and then fade it down. And do it multiple times from eye to ear through the whole side, just to make sure there's no unfaded or unblended areas. And then you have a nice kind of faded, shaggy cheek area that doesn't have any harsh lines in it. This is usually my notice that it's time to take a short break. For his lion's mane, I do the same fade as I did earlier because I don't want that abrupt line of long hair. So I take narrow sections, hold it at an angle so you can see the lengths from shortest to longest, and then fade the ends. So I shave his ears and I just use the blade that came with the clipper. It's a 10 blade or a 1.5 millimeter. He hates having his ears done, so if he gets a little upset like that and tries to turn away, like, that's fine. I'll just let him take a break from that ear and work on whatever's in front of me. Their ears can be a little tricky just since there's so many folds, but I usually take a firm hold and kind of flop it over like that to get inside the creases. So even though he hates this, he's pretty good for it, as you can see. But to get him used to this, my husband helped me a lot when he was little. Like, he'd hold on to his cheeks gently and talk to him, and he'd have a handful of treats and feed him treats basically constantly while I did this, just to try and associate good things with it. But Lucci would still rather not do this. The reason I keep his ears shaved, just for one, because I think it looks nicer, but for another, even with his cropped and upright ears with more airflow, he still has a lot of ear problems. I've pulled out thick mats of hair from the inside of his ear canal before if I didn't keep them trimmed soon enough. So just keeping the hair out of them really helps with airflow and they don't bother him as much. And if anyone's watching this that's totally new to clipping, just make sure you keep checking the temperature on your blade because they get overheated pretty quickly. And just make sure it's not too hot on your hand so it's not too hot on their ear. On him, I even like to shave underneath his ear a little bit, maybe like an inch worth. Otherwise it just gets skunked up with earwax anyway. We went outside for a potty break. But the last thing I want to show you on his ears are these long pieces right around them. So I like to cut out and basically shape out around his ears and take off all that long stuff that touches them. And I do this because I notice that right after I shave his ears, they get really sensitive. So he'll be laying down on the floor trying to sleep and his hair will be tickling his ears and it drives him crazy. He can't sleep and he's shaking constantly. So I just cut that out so he's a little more comfortable. I like to be really careful when I'm shaping up his tail, so I'll use my fingers and place them right at the end where his tail ends so that I know that I'll never nick him. And when I'm shaping his tail like this, I use the curved scissors just so I get a little more of that rounded effect. So I start with his tail when I do his body because that's the shortest point on his whole body, and then it's easy to fade out and blend everything from there. So this area right here is going to be super short, and then we'll just fade it out from there. So I just cut this part as short as I want him to be at the time, which is pretty short right now because it's summer and he's been really hot. And then once his rump is short, I want his top line to fade up into his lines. I mean, I don't really want to take any length off of this stuff, but I still take the ends off just so it's easier to brush, just like, you know, I would do on my own haircut. So I don't take any length off right here, I just nick the ends. Hey, Stefan! For his body, these are the lines that I follow. I follow his back leg line straight up, and his front leg line at the back I follow up, but then I include his top line in it. So it curves back to include that long stuff on top. So basically just picture a bison. In the middle is, hey Stefan, is what's going to be short, and I'll blend that into the longer areas around it. So I don't clip anything on his body, I just scissor it all by hand, and I think that's what makes him look so cute and shaggy, is that there's no flat lines from the clipper blade. So I just start by scissoring the central part on his torso, and then on his legs, kind of at the boundary lines, or on the bison lines, you just blend it in. This is the last part that I leave long on him underneath. It's kind of hard to see, but underneath on his chest I leave him like a lion kind of chest fluff. So I blend his short belly back area into that long stuff and leave that there. So same thing on his other side, cutting that short area first and following the bison lines. It's a little easier to see from this angle, so I just take the long fluff that's left on his leg, fluff up the very edge of it, and trim it down slightly to be kind of a median between the short and long areas. On his booty cheeks, I don't take much length off, but I keep them trimmed up so that they are a little easier to comb and they don't mat up so easily. So I just fluff them out like that and then trim the ends into a straight line. For his feet, I take the curved scissors and I take off basically all the length from the sides of his paws. And by keeping his shaggy Muppet feet trimmed down, it seems like it helps a lot. He doesn't bring as much dirt and leaves into the house. And if you groom on the floor like I do instead of on a raised table, this is going to take a little bit of finessing with your body position. I also trim off the bottommost ends of his leg hair in the back so that it doesn't drag on the ground and it keeps everything a little bit cleaner. And this is what his feet look like when they're finished. On his legs, I don't take off any length, kind of similar to his booty cheek. I just fluff it up like this and then trim the ends so that from the side it looks like a straight vertical line. And do this on all sides of each leg so you get that kind of like fuzzy pillar effect that Bouv people like to talk about. And when I get close to anywhere like his armpit where there's fine skin, I put my hand and block it as a safety measure because personally I would rather cut myself than cut him. That is a piece of cedar tree from outside that made it through bathing and brushing.
One potty break outside, and we're dealing with this now.
On Lucci, I like to shave what I call the splat zones, which is basically his armpit, belly, and kind of inner hip area. But I shave these for a couple of reasons. For one, it keeps him a lot cooler, and for another, in his armpit, it's creased, you know, it rubs together. It just tangles up really easily, like within a couple days he has knots, and it's just not worth it to keep it, so I just shave it for him. On his belly, I shave starting about probably 4 inches in front of his junk. This also helps so he doesn't get pee stained hair. Otherwise, if he does, it can get a little bit stinky. It just keeps him fresh longer. And everything in this area gets shaved, even at least 4 inches down the inside of his back legs. And this is why I shave those areas, because he gets too hot, and then he splats, and then he can spread out those shaved areas on the cold floor and feel better. I shave between his toe pads because if I don't, he gets really big mats that get all the way down into the skin in there, and they're a nightmare to get out. So I use the big clippers, get the external stuff as much as I can, and then use my husband's old beard trimmers to get down inside for the finer things. But it's definitely difficult. It's much easier if you have someone to help you hold their paw open while you're carefully nipping out the fur in between. Sorry for this extreme close-up, but the last hygiene area that I shave, what we like to call the poop chute. So if I don't do this, he just gets kind of poop caked on to his fur around his booty hole, and nobody likes that. He hates that, so we just shave it for him. After the poop chute, I also like to take the scissors and kind of trim up underneath it too, because I've noticed that I don't know, maybe your dog squats better than he does, because he doesn't really squat at all. So it kind of like trickles into the longer stuff underneath. So I'll just take the scissors and kind of clear out a little, I don't know, a poop chute extension, I guess, between his cheeks all the way down. And then after everything's shaved and naked back there, I just go through and take off some of the long stuff that's sticking out and blend it more. And he's done! Is it a long process? Yes, it's very time consuming, but I also really enjoy doing it now that we have kind of our pattern down. I mean, he always looks how I want him to look. I never worry if he's being treated with as much love as I treat him with, and it's pretty fun, I think. And you get to decide if you want to make your dog look like a werebear or a bison. Or I don't know, maybe you hate this haircut, and that's okay too. That's kind of the beauty of doing your own grooming. You can do whatever you want to do and whatever makes you happy. And also, if he gets overwhelmed, we're not on a time crunch, and we can just take breaks whenever he wants to go outside for a potty or have a play de-stress break or whatever, you know. I mean, shit, it took us 3 days to do this. P.S. I forgot to mention what a nice focal point the poop chute makes. It really sparkles in sunlight. So anyway, thanks for watching. I am by no means a professional groomer. I just wanted to show what works for us and what I like. And I hope maybe this helps give someone a confidence boost, I guess, so that you know that you can do this at home too if you want to.
Okay, you're all done. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, we're done. No biting. Why are you biting me?